This is huge. Sam Altman and OpenAI have released an open source model, basically two state of the art open weight language models, which deliver strong real world performance at low cost. So you had this tough competition coming from China labs. Basically, you had Quen, you had Kimi K2, you had Minimax, and now the Western world strikes back. You have GPT-oss 120B and GPT-oss 20B. Both are released under Apache 2.0 license, which means that you can redistribute it, you can use it for commercial purposes. These models outperform similarly sized open models on reasoning tasks, demonstrate strong tool use capabilities, and they are optimized for efficient deployment on consumer hardware. These models are already available on Cerebras, where you can go and try it out. It's available on Groq. In both these places, you get really fast inference. For example, this is on Groq.com, right? This is the OpenAI GPT-oss 120 billion parameters, which has an active parameters of say 5 billion parameters, right? So here I said create me a 3JS code for solar system visualization, all code in a single HTML file and should run on Chrome browser. Let's submit it, right? So this is how fast it is doing the code generation. We'll also download this code and test it. So this is on Cerebras. So here also I said create me a road rash like 3JS game. All code should be in a single HTML file and should run on a Chrome browser. So here it is. This is even more faster, right? So you can see the code has been generated. Let's copy this code and see how it works. Before going to the code, before executing the code, let's look at the benchmarks for this particular model. So here is the artificial intelligence analysis, right? Where they compare, they do independent analysis of AI models. And here, if you look at, intelligence, if you just look at intelligence based on benchmark, index is higher. So this model is over here, right? Score of 58, just below DeepSeek R1 over here. Okay. On speed, it is much more faster. It is comparable to Gemini 2.5 Flash over here, the 120 billion parameter model, right? And on price ratio, this is the most cheapest over here, right? Lower is better over here. Now, if you look at other benchmarks over here where they've compared it with Kimi K2 on various benchmarks over here. So if you look at, this particular overall artificial intelligence index, which is across, 8 evaluations, right, on various benchmarks over here. This model over here, if you see it is over here, GPT-oss is this is the 20 billion parameter model. Where is the GPT-oss 120 billion is over here. This model is much better than a Kimi K2 over here, right? And it compares very well with DeepSeek R1 among the open weight models which are available currently, right? Quen 3 is slightly bigger than this over here in terms of percentage, over here. Now, that's the same thing which is across various benchmarks, right? So this is a very good model for its size. It's a very good open source model for its size. Now, going into a little bit of details over here, the 120 billion parameter model, it achieves near parity with OpenAI O4 Mini on core reasoning benchmarks while running efficiently on a single 80 GB GPU. So the GPT-oss 20 billion model, 20 billion parameter models, it delivers similar performance to OpenAI O3 Mini, and this can run on edge devices with just 16 GB of memory. So this can be used for local inference or rapid iteration without costly infrastructure. Both models perform strongly on tool use, few short function calling, chain of thought reasoning. So you can actually see the chain of thoughts. Okay, that is good for you to debug, right? And they are compatible with their responses API format, so can be used for agentic workflows. That is what they are saying over here. And these models also have been tested for safety. That is what they are saying over here. Right over here, they've compared this model with only OpenAI models over here. So on various, on humanities last exam and a lot of other benchmarks. So you can check these benchmarks. So this is actually a great release from OpenAI, because you now have a very good open source model, which you can also deploy locally, the smaller version, and you also have the bigger model. If you have the infrastructure, you can also deploy the bigger model. This has reasoning, and basically you can specify your reasoning, whether you want it to be low, medium, or high. Even that is available. Now this model will be available through different deployment platforms such as Azure, Hugging Face, Olama, LM Studio, AWS, Fireworks, Bastine, Databricks, Vercel, Cloudflare, OpenRouter, Groq, Cerebras, right? So this model is going to be widely available for you to actually try it out. Now this kind of open source models are really good, because this would now result in others taking it, fine tuning it, making further improvements in the open source world. So this is a huge impact release in the open source world. Competition coming from a Western company now. Chinese labs were doing a lot of innovation in this space, and they were coming up with a lot of interesting releases. Good to see that OpenAI has released this model. Now we can expect similar models coming from, say, an Anthropic or a Google, right, in the future, because this would put pressure on other big firms also to now release their open source models, even though Google has Gemma series and other things. But something at the level of, say, an GPT-oss 120 billion parameter would be nice to have. You can also try out GPT-oss on their GPT-oss playground. So here I just had a simple query, which is like, I have an egg, a pin, a book, a laptop, and a bottle. How do I stack each item on top of each other individually? So this is more about a physical understanding of the world, right? So here it says it thought for 9 seconds. So here is the thinking process, where it says possibly the user wants a step-by-step process to stack each item on top of each other. Given the ambiguous nature, we need to ask clarification. Additionally, I need to adhere to the policy, no disallowed content. This is safe. Okay. Then it says we must respond kindly, ask for clarification. Are you trying to stack all items on top of each other? Right. Also, we can advise to secure the items, avoid damage. We can also give them a step-by-step plan for stacking. Probably the user wants instruction for stacking each item on top of each other individually. So this is the thought process which you can clearly see over here. And after that, it actually comes up with this particular response, where it says, I'm happy to help you to figure out how to make a little tower. Before I give a step-by-step plan, could you tell me a bit more about what you have in mind? And it says, do you want to build a single stack, one tower that uses all 5 items, or you are looking for individual how-to constructions? Do you need the stack to be stable for a photo or a demonstration? Or it is a fun mental puzzle you are trying to solve? And then it goes like this. If you want one single tower, a stable tower needs heavy flat items at the bottom and the more fragile lighter items at the top. And then it starts explaining, right? Heavy flat items at the bottom. So it says bottle. So, or a solid flat bottom container. The bottle's bottom is usually the flattest, heaviest, and most stable part. So first is bottle. Then the layer 2 is book. Layer 3 is laptop. Layer 4 is pin, and then an egg. Actually, I would have expected laptop, book, bottle, egg, and pin, right? If it is physically possible. Now this is a slightly different thing. Then it goes, what is the tips for a stable tower? Then if you want individual how to steps, pin on top of a book, book on top of a laptop, right? Laptop on top of a bottle, egg on top of the pen. So it kind of, creates some kind of confusion over here. Then it says one quick one line answer, heavy flat at the bottom. So put a book on top of the bottle, bottle on a flat surface. It somehow goes along these lines. Okay. And it says if you are ready, then try the simple bottom up stack with the coaster tower approach I outlined. So this is the kind of explanation which this model gives. So this gives you an idea of how the model looks at, say, real world, whether it tries to understand, some real world concepts. So this is another question. A boy met with an accident. He was taken to a hospital. The surgeon said they would not perform the operation. Why did the surgeon say so? Very simple response, which I'm expecting is the surgeon is a relative of the boy, and hence the surgeon is not going to perform the surgery. Now let's see what happens over here. goes into its training and the surgeon is boy's mother. See, it just gives this question. Most people automatically picture a surgeon as a man. I just wanted surgeon as a relative over here. Doesn't mean it's a man or it's a surgeon's father or mother. Nothing else is there. But this is because of this classic riddle and overtraining of these models. So this is another open-ended question. There are three sisters in a room. The eldest is listening to music. One is playing chess. What is the other sister doing? Let's see what is the response from the model. Okay, the other sister is the opponent. She's also playing chess. Since chess needs two players, the sister who's playing chess must have a partner, and that partner is the third sister. This is a very good response. This is an open-ended question. I've seen some thinking models going crazy over here. At least, over here you get a direct response which is more intuitive, right? I wanted to see how this model works on something like a medical text or extracting clinical entities from medical text. So that is what I'm doing over here. So I've given a nursing note over here. Let's see what it pulls out over here. So it thought for 15 seconds. Fortunately, I think there is an error over here. Maybe I should try it again. So let me copy it. New conversation here. See what happens. So this is actually hosted on Hugging Face. And after the initial conversation, it actually after just one attempt, it actually asked me to log in with my Hugging Face account. So that's what I've done over here. Yeah, so now it's extracted over here. So demographics, 50-year-old female, presenting problem signs. Wonderful. Past medical history, very well pulled out. Imaging diagnostic studies, laboratory findings, toxic metabolic issues, procedure intervention, medications treatments. So it's actually done a good job over here. So this is zero shot clinical entity extraction, right? So this is a good model to try out in healthcare as well. Even they talk about the model's performance on health bench over here, and they're saying that this is a good model on health bench, okay, which is their realistic health conversations. So this is actually quite good over here. Now let's look at the code which was generated. Let's try to test that code and see how it performs. So first, let's look at the road rash game. So let me copy this file and then let me run it. This game. And unfortunately, it doesn't work. Okay, it kind of throws up an error. Is what it looks like. So what is the error over here? But it is not working. Okay, it's created some kind of visualization, but for some reason it's just not working. If you see over here in this also there are some errors. So zero shot, I'm not being able to code some things over here, but I need to intensively test this model on how it performs on various other tasks, right? Depending upon how we can change the low, medium, and high for reasoning, right? So these models have 128K context length. So this 120 billion parameter model has 5.1 billion parameter active parameters. It's a mixture of experts. So there are 128 total experts. Per token, there are 4 active experts. The 20 billion parameter model has 3.6 billion parameter active parameters. It has totally 32 experts, 4 tokens. So both have 128K context length. Yeah. And they've trained these models on mostly English text-only dataset with the focus on STEM, coding, and general knowledge. That is what they're saying over here. So they have a model card as well, so you can check it out for further details about this particular model. So this is an interesting release from OpenAI. Hopefully this would lead to more open source models being released by other companies. Hope this video was useful. See you in another video.